I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you all for being present here today. Today is Tuesday, October 15th. This is the meeting of the Rules, Confirmations, and Public Elections Committee. I am detecting a quorum with myself, Vice Chair Cash, Councilmembers Struffel, Rutherford, and Sepulveda being present. Before we proceed, I just want to say for anybody in the public who is watching, we're coming up on our election season. Early voting starts tomorrow. And one of the things that we are hyper-focused on and hyper-aware of are any potential threats of intimidation or violence at polling places. It will not be tolerated in any way, shape, or form. We will not tolerate any acts of violence or any acts of intimidation. So if you hear anything, if you see anything, make sure to reach out to your council member, who will then reach out to MNPD, who is taking the necessary steps to make sure that there is constant situational awareness of any threats around our polling places. We want to make sure that you all have a free and fair opportunity to participate in our democracy. So just wanted to make sure that you are aware of that. By state law, time is reserved for public comment before the meeting. There is nobody signed up for public comment today, so we will go ahead and move straight into our agenda. With resolutions on the agenda, I do have a consent calendar. Those are items number 1, number 2, 3, 4, and 6. Is there anything that anybody wishes to remove from consent? Seeing none, I will go ahead and read the consent agenda into the record. So number 1 is RS 2024-800, the resolution expressing support for access to paid safe leave. Number 2, RS 2024-801, a resolution honoring the life and accomplishments of Chris Christopherson. Item number 3, RS 2024-802, a resolution recognizing United Record Pressing for 75 years of operation. RS 2024-803, a resolution recognizing the 20th anniversary of the Nashville Public Library Foundation Literary, there we go. Reading's important, y'all. Literary Award Gala, as well as RS 2024-805, a resolution celebrating 50 years of Nashville Fire Department EMS. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved and properly seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 5 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Next we have RS 2024-804. I will roll that to the hill. And then, likewise, we have RS 2024-806, a resolution recognizing October 11th, 2024 as National Coming Out Day in Nashville and Davidson County. I did receive a letter of approval from Councilmember Benedict asking us to approve this item. Do we have any, well, let's get it before us. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved and properly seconded. Do we have any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? 5 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Okay, late items. So we have a late filed substitute by Councilmember Allen. On the agenda, so it's RS 2024-779, a resolution approving Amendment A to a grant for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health to support activities to protect air quality so that it achieves established ambient air standards, is essentially what the substitute does. I'll recognize Councilmember Allen. Could you tell us about the late filed nature of the substitute?
So, well, largely the late filed nature is it took me that long to figure out why the two bills seem to have the same caption, 799 and 780. And by the time I got an answer back from Metro Health on that, I had missed the 12 o'clock on Friday deadline. But they were still supportive of making this change.
Okay.
I neglected to answer if it matters if we defer it so that it will be timely filed, and I could try to chase them down and find that out.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and recognize Metro Public Health if you want to speak to this. If anybody's here from. Okay.
You may have left. Okay.
if we could check and see if, well,
Let me, move me to the hill.
all right, we'll roll this to the hill. And that is it for the late filed items, so we'll go ahead and roll forward. So this is board and commission elections. Candidates in this category will be subject to a recommendation vote by the Rules Confirmation and Public Elections Committee and an election by the council. So first up, we have the Contract Compliance Board. Consideration of nominees for a council member to serve as a non-voting member of the board with a term expiring on October 15th, 2026. Do we have a motion? Oh, wait, this is the nomination of Councilmember Sandra Sepulveda, nominated by Councilmember Sean Parker. Do we have a motion?
Do you want to do a consent?
Yeah, we can do a consent since we already interviewed all these folks. Yeah, I'll read these into, so items 9, 10, and 11 will be on consent. Is there anybody wishing to remove anything from consent? Seeing none, I will go ahead and read these items into the consent agenda. So, item 9 is, the consideration of a,
I'm sorry, can I interrupt real quick?
yes.
Number 9 probably ought not be on consent.
Okay.
The rest could be on consent. Number 9 should not be on consent because it's approving Councilmember Sepulveda, and she's a member of the, you would need to not vote on that one.
Okay.
Not voting for yourself, I guess.
You would vote, yeah, you would want to not vote for that one.
Really? We did that on the floor, though. I mean, I vote for myself on the floor.
In committee to make the recommendation, did you vote last time for this one?
Yeah.
Then feel free to move forward with that.
I could not. Just in case.
We'll remove it from consent because we're going to have some lengthy discussion.
I just won't,
about it,
okay.
yeah.
I'll just pretend that
I've got a couple
I'm
comments about that one, actually. I'd like to.
Yeah.
I just won't do it this time.
Put you on the silent.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so items on
Corner.
consent are number 10, the consideration of nominees for 2 vacancies to be filled by members of the community with a term expiring on October 15th, 2026 to the Contract and Compliance Board. Nominations of Ann Barnett, nominated by Councilmember Delisha Porterfield, as well as Dante Gleaves, nominated by Councilmember Quante Toombs. Item 11, the Housing Trust Fund Commission, consideration of nominees to fill 1 vacancy on the commission with a term expiring on September 17th, 2026. The Honorable Gloria Hauser, nominated by Councilmember Sherry Weiner, as well as Jayla Thomas, nominated by Councilmember Jennifer Webb. Those are the items on consent. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any not voting. 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. To approve these on consent. So going back to agenda item number 9, the Contract and Compliance Board consideration of a nominee for a council member to serve as a non-voting member of the board with a term expiring on October 15, 2026. The nomination of Councilmember Sandra Sepulveda, nominated by Councilmember Sean Parker.
Move approval.
Moved and
Second.
properly seconded. Since it's properly before us, do we have any discussion? I'll start off with some discussion. How dare you? Any discussion from the body or anybody wishing to speak to this?
I think Councilmember Sepulveda worked hard to make this board a reality and will be an incredible member to get it going.
I second that sentiment.
I think it's appropriate, fitting, and I look forward to seeing what y'all do.
Anything further from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 5 in favor, 0 against, 1 not voting for approval. Okay. So moving forward, boards and commission appointees and nominees. Candidates in this category will appear before the Rules, Confirmations, and Public Elections Committee to determine the relative qualifications of candidates. First up, we have the Auditorium Commission reappointment of Jerry Pentecost for a term expiring on June 30th, 2027. Is Mr. Pentecost in here? Can we?
I believe he is not going to make it to this meeting this evening.
It's a second.
Chair,
Yep, Vice Chair Cash.
This is the third,
Yeah, third meeting, yeah.
if we were to defer this would be the third time, like, what's going on here? Is there anybody from the mayor's office that can help us
Is the
He's not
vice
one of our
mayor.
appointments. It's
So,
not a mayoral
This,
appointment.
the original appointment was actually a nomination by the council, and it went through 2 deferrals because he was unable to make 2 meetings. And then that nomination/appointment rolled to the vice mayor. And so the vice mayor has made this appointment, and so now would be
But the-
subject to a 3rd deferral.
But to be clear, the 2 other deferrals were before, this is a question, before, like the vice mayor sent the appointment letter on the August 30th, and the 2 deferrals were after that, so this is the 3rd.
This will be the
Since the
3rd.
vice mayor.
Correct.
Okay.
I think we,
I'm concerned about that.
I also think that we have a trend.
Chair Porterfield.
So Chair, if I may address this to Director Darby, I'm so sorry, I'm so befuddled in this moment. So is that the 5th time that this person has missed? Twice for council and 3 for vice mayor?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, Chair, I would consider discussing whether we want to move forward and turn this into an indefinite deferral. And I'll move indefinite deferral,
Second.
frankly, because I want to make sure that we have somebody in this position who the committee isn't going to want to keep kicking the can down the road. And we want people that'll be able to serve. So with that, I move indefinite deferral.
Second.
That motion is probably before it's been moved and probably seconded. A question for you, Director Darby. With an indefinite deferral, at any point while this specific person is deferred indefinitely, would the vice mayor be able to make a subsequent appointment, or would this need to be withdrawn? Would Mr. Pentecost's nomination need to be withdrawn, and then the vice mayor resubmit another
I
person?
think that the vice mayor would probably want to withdraw the nomination and then, or the appointment, sorry, and then need to make another appointment.
After
But
the
the-
indefinite deferral comes
but
from the
the-
committee.
But the appointment remains with the vice mayor here. There's no further movement for an appointment.
I'm gonna go to Vice Chair Cash.
So she can she withdraw at any time, or does she need to do it like on the floor, or like if she does a letter saying I withdraw, does that?
It's an unusual situation, but I do believe that if she were to withdraw the appointment, she could make a subsequent appointment.
Thank you.
Ms.
So, Chair, I have a question for Ms. Harvey. Do we then, as a committee, send the message to the vice mayor that we're going to indefinitely defer this, and then she can withdraw it? Or do we defer it again pending her withdrawal?
I think that you could take either step.
I think we send a message. I'm gonna renew my motion.
second, yeah.
The motion is properly before us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question on the floor is for an indefinite deferral for the Auditorium Commission reappointment of Jerry Pentecost. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? So we've got 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting for an indefinite deferral. Okay, next we move to the East Bank Development Authority consideration of nominees for 2 vacancies on the authority with an election to be held November 7th, 2024. 1 vacancy on the authority is for a term expiring June 30th, 2026, and 1 vacancy is for a term expiring on June 30th, 2027. First, we have the nomination of Mikhail Hutton, nominated by Councilmember Jacob Coopin. With this specific one, I'm going to make a motion that I'm going to move that we suspend the rules for the consideration of Councilmember Coopin's nominee to allow us to be able to interview them at our subsequent meeting. And I'm going to recognize Councilmember Coopin to explain the nature of this motion.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that consideration, and appreciate everyone who's been here today. My nominee, Mikhail Houghton, is well-liked in the community, well-respected. I've heard from other members of the body they'd be open to considering her. Unfortunately, she did have a family memorial funeral today and could not be here, and obviously I could not ask her to not go to a family funeral to be here. Previously, before this rule change, that we would have had to move the entire vote to allow someone to appear at a subsequent meeting, but with the rule change where we interview today and then vote at the next meeting, that provides some opportunity to then consider them on the next meeting, still giving the body some time to understand what they're about. She still completed her questionnaire. She sent in her resume. She's I think she may have reached out to some of y'all. She's willing to answer questions, but I would humbly ask the committee to consider allowing her to speak at the next meeting.
And Councilmember Coopin, could you also speak to your reasoning for nominating this specific person and why you feel that they would be best fit for this board?
I'd be happy to. Appreciate it, Chair. So Mikhail is the Executive Director of the Cumberland River Compact. She has served on that in that role since 2014. She was part of Root Nashville's efforts to start their Nashville Tree Program. Her resume is fairly extensive on the different accomplishments. She has worked on task forces with the city and with the state, and this is going to be a city-state authority, so she has demonstrated she can work at both levels. She cares about the river, she cares about environment. Obviously, the East Bank is along the east bank of the river, so it's important to me to have someone that understands that piece of it. I think we're gonna see a diverse authority set up, but to me, she seemed like the best candidate to represent that. And since I've nominated her, I've gotten calls from a number of folks that I deeply respect in the community who have all said, "Hey, she's awesome. I've worked with her in this role or that role, and she's done a really good job." So I think she's balanced. I think she's smart. I think she cares deeply about the city, and would be a great asset to this authority.
So the motion is to suspend the rules for us to allow for us to interview her at our subsequent meeting. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Right, properly seconded. The motion is before us. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
Yes. Hey, Jacob. Okay. So, we have had council members in the past have similar asks. And I think to stay consistent with what we have told previous council members, which was, no, you can't do that, and you're gonna have to, like, nominate them at a later date. Like, I can't, in good conscience, like, vote to suspend the rules. I understand it, like, it's a very tough situation. Like, I'm willing to abstain during committee, and if the body as a whole decides to do that on the floor, that's another thing. We have changed the rules to allow us more time to, go back, watch, and see which candidate fits best with the direction that we want to go in. But I have tried to be as consistent as possible with what I tell one council member and the other. So that's why I'm just gonna abstain on this, and I want to be as respectful as possible to you, your candidate, but also the council members that have come before this committee and that I have sent this meeting to.
Councilmember Weiner.
While I respect consistency a lot, you can't control when people die. And that sways me because this is out of her control. This is out of Councilmember Coopin's control. And so I wonder if, and this is for conversation for another day, but I wonder if maybe we need to look at the rule and identify specific criteria that we would allow this to be punted. It's a fairly new rule, and so sometimes life happens, death happens, and I think we need to be sensitive to that. So I'm going to support it.
Any further discussion?
I have a question. Are we suspending the rules to move the whole vote, or is that correct?
So how this suspension would work is that we would approve to suspend the rules. Councilmember Coopin's nominee would then appear before us next meeting, and it would essentially operate the same way that it did previously, where the interview would be done same day, and then that vote would subsequently move to the floor.
Are we gonna interview the other 4 people today?
Correct.
Okay. And, okay. Oh, I got you. I understand. Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions?
Just real quick. I agree with Councilmember Weiner in that I think that we need to maybe take a look at the rule, and this is a valid reason to do so at a later date. But for this particular circumstance, I think we need to consider the compassion side and allow this.
Any further discussion? Yes. You're right, Nat, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for recognizing me, even though I'm not in the committee. Obviously, I don't have a vote in this. I kind of lean towards what Councilwoman Sepulveda is saying. So much compassion to the young lady and her loss and her family. My only concern is that we're trying to create like an equitable process. So if we're interviewing people today and then next week we're interviewing someone else for that same position, like, does anyone in that situation get an unfair advantage? Is that the people that are here today because now we have 2 weeks to vet them, or are they gonna be at a loss because we have 2 weeks to find more dirt on them? Or is the other person gonna be at an advantage because we just heard them and now that's the person that's fresh in our brain and we may not remember the people from the 2 weeks before? So my only thought would to be, is there a way to just make it more equitable so everybody has the same footing? So I would lean towards what Councilmember Sepulveda was saying, to maybe consider it at a different time would be my thought, but thank y'all for entertaining that.
Thank you.
I have
Vice
one
Chair
more.
Cash, yes.
Will the body of the council have to suspend the rules as well?
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, this will be something that we'll discuss on the floor as well. So, because correct me if I'm not mistaken, Director Darby, this vote to suspend the rules is not binding on the entirety of the body.
The vote by the committee.
Correct.
That's correct. Yeah, the body will have to suspend the rules on the floor.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we've heard the motion, it's been properly seconded. We'll move to a vote. Those in favor say aye. Actually, we'll raise your hands for the
Yeah, and this is the vote to suspend the rules.
Yeah, so the
To
question.
verify.
Yeah, so the motion on the floor is to suspend the rules to allow for us to interview Councilmember Coopin's nominee next. Right, those in favor, raise your hand. Five in favor, all those against, those not voting. So 5 in favor, 0 against, 1 not voting to suspend the rules. Okay. So we'll move forward. Next, to the East Bank Development Authority Board, we've got the nomination of Carrie Garner, nominated by Councilmember Mike Cortez. It is, if we can move that chair to the center, yeah. If you could come forward, please. Would you like a bus pass or a parking validation?
Parking validation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
Yes.
Okay. And do you serve on any other boards or commissions other than the one that you are being appointed to?
No,
Okay, perfect. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to serve on this board.
well, I grew up in rural Kentucky. Was first to go to college, came to Nashville from Murray State, and have been here since 1988. I've seen this city grow. I love this city. Can't imagine living anywhere else. I've always thought I wanted to be a part of this city. Now, probably council isn't, Metro Council isn't probably for me, but I'm a CPA. Been a partner at different CPA firms for several years now. I understand numbers. I always have, even as a child. And I think the advisory would benefit from my knowledge of that. I would like to make sure that everyone's serviced by this project, that nobody's disserviced, like the surrounding communities. And as was pointed out, I've wondered about, will this cause pollution in the river since it's right next to the river? So I would like to be part of that oversight. As far as other boards I've served on, nothing quite this size. I was member and treasurer of the Tennessee Pride Chamber, and worked with a couple of the council members that, of course, you know, and I just would love to see this city flourish even more.
Perfect. Before we ask you any further questions, Councilmember Cortez, do you want to speak to your nominee?
Please, thank you. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I was talking with a friend the other day, and we had a conversation around narrative, and I thought it was really fitting for this discussion. If you look at narrative, the villain and the hero usually have a very similar origin story, and it's the difference in the execution of how they live out that origin story. The villain, something happened to them, and they think, I want to make sure everyone else feels this pain. The hero sees that, they feel that pain, they say, I want to make sure no one else ever feels this pain, and that's what I'm going to work for. And I think of, when I met Kerry 6 years ago, I think of him as that hero. Growing up poor in Kentucky, I remember the first time we were talking about our backstories. I grew up in a lower income community as well, and he's like, we grew up on powdered milk. Being a gay man in Kentucky, growing up when that wasn't accepted, working with the LGBT chamber, and working to build himself up into a career where he's able to see how businesses work and how businesses thrive. Knowing that we'd have someone who could look at those numbers, audit them in an equitable way, and somebody who cares so much that this city serves every member of the city. And bringing that talent to me, I just think that's paramount to have somebody with that auditing ability on that board. He told me, he goes, I know numbers so well, man, because I'm a horrible public speaker. You did phenomenal, by the way, phenomenal. I said, the city would be so well served by your talent and your care and your heart. And I was like, if you're up for this, I would love to nominate you. And I nominate him with full confidence. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to speak for him today.
Thank you. With this specific board, one of the things that I'm mindful of is something that you touched on, making sure that we are serving the community to the best of our abilities. And with that, we also have to make sure that we're doing it in an equitable manner. So in your service on this board, would you be willing to, on this advisory authority, would you be willing to commit to advancing the principles of equity?
Absolutely. I've always believed in anything being equitable.
Okay. And then also, would you also be committed to ensuring that working with other boards and commissions that we have in place or that are emerging to ensure that there are safe working conditions for those who are working on this project?
Absolutely. I grew up on a farm, so things were not very safe then. And my father worked with the union at a steel pipe, as a steel pipe welder, until it shut down. And so I've always believed in safe working conditions for everyone.
Any questions from the committee? Yes, Councilmember Spola.
Thank you, Chair. You're going to have a lot of interest groups, people who are going to be taking a very hard look and a very active role into the East Bank, right? You're going to have to be balancing business interests, new neighborhood, workers who are going to be building the new part of the city. This is one of the most dangerous cities to work in construction in the South. We've had several fatalities. We have people who are displaced every day. It is a vision for a new Nashville, and it is one of the biggest projects we will have in recent history. And so I just want to hear from you what your plan is and what your perspective is and what you want to bring to the table, and what you see your role as.
A lot of this will be new to me, but I've always been fair. And gosh, that's a hard question. I will always look out for the workers. I will always look out for the investors. But there's always a give and take. And I have always felt that I was a good kind of mediator in those type of situations, as far as being able to tell what's right and what's not. I mean, I don't know if that really answers your question or not.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Anything further from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote, or do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. We'll move to the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much. All right, next we have, to the same authority, the nomination of Nathaniel Carter by Councilmember Toombs. Mr. Carter, would you like a bus pass or a parking validation?
Oh, parking validation.
Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
Yes, sir.
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions?
No, sir.
Tell us a little bit about why you would like to serve.
Tell you a little bit about what?
Why you would like to serve.
Oh, why I would like to serve. One of my key things is I am a Nashville resident through and through, and I have actively been trying to change the narrative in the city of Nashville every day that I wake up. I spent 10 years as a union electrician in the trades, and in 10 years of me being in the trades, I was going into public schools, detention centers, prisons, and everything, talking to young adults about getting into the trades. Well, fast forward, I had the opportunity to take my career to a broader horizon, and was appointed the Director of Workforce and Employment. So within that role, I was given a dual opportunity to be able to oversee the First Source Hiring Program and a program called Music City Construction Careers. So with that, I was able to reach out to more individuals in the community and give those people career opportunities that they didn't know that they had. So I've always been that guy to give back to my community and show them a way out. So this board is an amazing opportunity to show our community and basically have somebody on there that's from the community that can actually be the voice for them.
Thank you. Chair Toombs, would you like to speak to your nominee?
I surely would.
Just in time.
So the development of the East Bank is going to be transformational for this city, because it's an opportunity for the city to have more control in development. Because you look around the city and you hear this from everybody who's from Nashville, that a lot of people have been left behind. There's a lot of economic prosperity in our city, but a lot of people who've been here their whole lives, who've been here a long time, have been left behind. So as we're developing the city-owned portion of the East Bank, we really need to keep the working people, the everyday residents in mind, and Nate is going to do that. I don't know anybody who does it better than he does. Every step of the way, he's going to remind the folks on this board who they're really working for, which is the people in Nashville. And we really need to make sure that as the East Bank develops, that it's for the people of Nashville. And Nate, you've heard it with his history of working in the community, his commitment to getting people access to the trades. He's gone into the schools so that kids coming out of school, as they begin adulthood, have a good start in life. He is going to be the voice of the people on that board, and so I think that he'll be a great asset, and I ask for my colleagues to support him.
Chair Porterfield?
Thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on what Council Lady Toombs said. I've had the opportunity to know Mr. Carter for several years now. He is one of the hardest working people that you will ever meet. In addition to being a voice for the people, he brings a wealth of experience and knowledge for things that will be really important for this board in particular. Being a person that's involved in the trades and in the union, he knows what it means to be OSHA 10 certified and OSHA 30 certified, and he knows when job sites aren't safe and what that looks like to make sure that we're keeping our workers safe. He's also been a big part of conversations around affordable housing in our city and what affordability looks like. We know that affordability is one of our big tenets on the East Bank, and wanting to make sure that we are considering the needs of our residents. Nate has been at the negotiation table with really key stakeholders and players in this city and has been able to advocate for the needs of residents. So I just think that he is a really good blend of a voice for the community, but he also has just the knowledge and the ability that's needed to represent people, to keep our workers safe, to focus on affordable housing. I just think that all of those worlds are kind of colliding with Nate, and I think that he would just be perfect for this board.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair Toombs. Yes, Councilmember Rutherford.
Yeah, I noticed the application indicates that you are not a registered voter. Is that an error?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Can you address that?
If you want me to address it, in 2001, I got into some trouble.
Okay.
I made some choices, and I had to deal with those consequences. But at that time, I was 18, 19 years old. I'm 42 years old now, and in the process of me making the decision that I made, I have done everything in my willpower to steer young adults away from the things that got me in trouble. So, yes, sir.
Thanks for sharing that. I would ask, do we know if there's anything that prohibits someone who is not registered to vote?
There's no prohibition.
There's no prohibition.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do want to address this very briefly, especially given the state in which we live. It is, there's been a lot of press relatively recently about how restrictive the franchise is here in the state of Tennessee. And how it disproportionately affects minorities and people of color, and how a person is more than the sum of the worst thing that they've ever done in their entire life. And Mr. Carter, I think, has demonstrated how true that adage is, and how your ability to invest in and care for your community and rise above any occasion is not predicated on anything that could potentially be within a person's criminal history. I think both Councilmember Toombs and Chair Porterfield have spoken to the quality of this nominee and of this individual, and that he has demonstrated his ability to serve this community and to ensure that those who, as Chair Toombs has said, have been left behind, truly do have a voice in our institutions. And I also think that it's vitally important that we give every single person in our society a free, fair, and equal opportunity to have a say in the government that dictates their everyday lives. So with that, Councilmember Sepulveda.
Thank you, Chair. And I would just like to speak on behalf of Mr. Carter. One of the things that I did early on when I became Rules Chair was to look at the questions that we asked at the beginning of the interviews. And one of them was, are you a registered voter? And I realized that for some of the boards and commissions, you don't have to be a registered voter. For some of the ones that are created by the state, you do have to be. And so I realized that asking that question, especially for some people that are, let's say, undocumented, that also made them think that they weren't allowed to serve on these boards and commissions, and so a lot of them wouldn't apply. When my nephew graduated from high school, and I was trying to figure out a way to get him to, buckle down and get his head on straight, the two people I reached out to were Sam and Nate, to see if they could talk to him and about the MC3 program. And so Nate and Sam came out and met us at a coffee shop and talked to him about the MC3 program. And they sat there with him, and one of the things that many of y'all might not know is that my brothers were incarcerated, and this happened when I was still in high school. So being held at gunpoint and having your home doors knocked down and your whole family put on the ground and in handcuffs, and having your family members gone away for several years takes a toll on you. And the system worked for them at the end of the day. They are reformed. They were able to start families, but that's something that Nate was able to talk about his story with my nephew, and they were able to relate in a way that many people can't. And because of that, he was able to convince him to apply for the MC3 program. He was able to graduate from the MC3 program, and now my nephew's an apprentice with the plumbers union and studying to become a welder. Even though Nate really wanted him to be an electrician, but an electrician is not what he wanted at the end of the day. He wanted to go make money as a welder. But
I'm still mad about
yes.
that. I know, I'm sorry, y'all, but I'm still mad about that. But
But I think it's a great opportunity for him to be able to bring in the worker voice into the East Bank discussion, bring in young people, having this program be in our MNPS schools now. I think the worker voice has been an important topic, and especially the minority voice has been an important thing that has been missing for a very long time in several spaces. And so that's why I wholeheartedly give my endorsement to Nate.
Councilmember Rutherford, then we'll go to you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I agree with what the chair said previously on this topic, and I respect your story of overcoming, and I'm happy that you shared it with us. And looking at your application and all, I support your nomination for this position. I would have a concern with an applicant that came in that didn't have such a story of something that they overcame, but was not a registered voter. I would put scrutiny on that person more so than someone who has such a story of such as Mr. Carter. So I wholeheartedly support his nomination.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I just wanted to speak to my experience with Mr. Carter a little bit. So the MC3 program, which is a program that gets young people, and not so young people, but mostly young people, ready to jump into a union trade career. They have they're in one high school in Davidson County, and that's Maplewood High School in District 5. And I've gotten the chance to go out there and sit in on some of the classes, listen to those young people learn about their career opportunities, get prepared for an opportunity that boy, I wish I had had access to as a young man. I spent some rudderless years bouncing around, neither fruitful nor meaningful work in my early years, and to see these young people in our high schools in Maplewood specifically have that opportunity to be getting ready to plug in to careers with a high ceiling in the skilled trades in a town where they can stay where they grew up working, because Nashville's got a lot of construction going on, we're booming, we've always got big things going on. That's really special, and we're really glad to have it at Maplewood, and Mr. Carter's been like an integral part of that working, so just wanted to highlight that experience. Thanks.
Sure, just ditto this. I got to see Mr. Carter and Sam at several graduations. Extremely proud of what you guys do. You're taking kids that really need the help and giving them some opportunity. So ditto from what everybody has said. You're an amazing part of the community. Thank you.
If y'all don't mind if I speak, man, this is amazing for me to be sitting in front of you all. A kid that grew up in J.C. Napier Projects, that has been through the Ringerman Roads, just to be sitting in front of you all right now, this is an honor and a privilege. I would have never dreamed and thought that I'd be sitting in front of you all. Every time that I meet one of the council members, it kind of chokes me up, because I'm like, yo, I'm sitting down here talking to council members, man. Like, you know, just being honest and being truthful with you all. You know, y'all were like Superman or something. Like, y'all was untouchable, you know. So for me to be sitting right here in front of you all and doing the work of the city, this is amazing for me. So I just appreciate just being here.
Councilmember Whitaker.
I want to speak to that. You're doing the work of the city.
Here, here.
Period. You are doing the work of the city. And we are really in your debt for everything you do.
Man, boy, I ain't cried in so long.
I'm going to go get some Kleenex if you need them.
Man, Lord. Man, but I just appreciate y'all, seriously.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you for your willingness to be out here and to share what you've done, not only with us, but everybody that you touch in the work that you do with MC3 and being in the high school, so thank you for that. Any further discussion from the committee?
What I miss?
Just vote yes and not worry about it.
Don't ask questions.
Second.
All right, motion is for approval, properly seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nate.
Man, do y'all mind if I shake y'all hand? Man, seriously. Appreciate y'all.
It's all right, really. Right. Next, we have the nomination of Scott Tiff by Council Member Sean Parker. All right, Mr. Tiff, thank you for being here. Would you like a bus pass or a parking validation?
Parking validation.
Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
Yes, I am.
And do you currently serve on any other boards or commissions other than the one you're being appointed to?
I do not.
Tell us a little bit about why you want to serve on this board.
So, a few different reasons. I think you've got to start with the fact that I live in not technically the East Bank that isn't yet a neighborhood. It's mostly parking lots, but just a few streets up in District 6, Councilmember Capps' district. Have lived there for over a decade now, and so the whole community that we're envisioning and that currently exists is close to my heart and to my family's heart, and so I think it's an awesome responsibility to have the opportunity to try to help this, as it was mentioned, ground shaking sort of large change to the area be done thoughtfully, carefully, with the mind of the community and the people at the forefront. In terms of what I've dedicated my career to, I'm a lawyer and I represent workers, and workers, there's lots of non-unionized workers in the state of Tennessee. I have the honor and the privilege of representing both unionized workers and non-union workers. So I represent the United Food and Commercial Workers, which is all of our Kroger workers in town, and some others here and there. the SEIU, which is a hodgepodge of a lot of different workers in Metro and across the state. And having done that now for 12 years or so on the worker, in that capacity, I'm very well attuned to all of the issues that workers face, both in the construction trades when a project like this is going up, but also in long-term employers that will presumably, have a place in this development, whether that's the hospitality industry, certainly the food industry. The stadium's going to employ a lot of people. There's all sorts of worker issues that I think need to be kept at the forefront to ensure that as we're developing with a mind to the workers building safely and then having jobs that can help them survive, raise a family, and live meaningful, not paycheck to paycheck lives. So I think having that perspective, having worked for workers for all these years, is my number one sort of expertise reason for being on this board, and something that I think is important to have on the board. And of course, I do that as a lawyer, and like us or not, it's good to have some lawyers on boards. Of course, we're going to be dealing with a lot of complicated contracts and things like that. The state-city overlay, I think it's nice when you have some lawyers in the mix. So those are the two reasons that I highlight primarily. The third is my overall belief that our city has to do what it can to find ways to continue to make it affordable for people to live in the city and to come to the city if they live out of the city. And so, to me, in this very central area of the town, that's a combined affordable housing and transit mission that has to be brought to this neighborhood, so that you're building, as some part of the mix, housing with not just a pledge, but a continued responsibility to be affordable housing that will stay that way, but also to have the transit connections such that if you work in the neighborhood but you live in the outskirts of the county or even beyond the county, we have the best ways to transition, to move into that neighborhood with different modes of reliable, safe, and inexpensive transit. So I think that's the other aspect that I'm most see myself bringing to the authority, and I think is important voices to have on the authority.
Thank you. Councilmember Parker, do you wish to speak to your nominee?
I do, yeah, thank you. So I've known Scott for many years from some of the unfruitful menial work that I did in my youth. I was a runner for a bunch of law firms here in town for years, and used to do filings for Scott's firm back in the day. Up through the other day, I was listening to him make arguments before the Tennessee Supreme Court. That was just like a week ago, 10 days ago. So I find Scott to be very knowledgeable, very impressive. I think one of the first tasks of the East Bank Development Authority is going to be to hash out an intergovernmental agreement with Metro. So that's going to be a complicated document. It's going to basically lay the terms out for how this development goes. And I think someone with the legal background, the skill set that Scott brings to the table, would be an enormous asset for that process of getting that intergovernmental agreement agreed upon and enacted, hopefully by the authority and by us. Also, it's very important to me, and I know it's very important to Mr. Tiff's council member, who we kind of had a little bit of a arm wrestling match over who would actually nominate Scott, but I won. What was it? Yeah. So having that East Nashville perspective, this project is going to impact Davidson County. It's going to impact the region, but it's going to have its most immediate impacts on East Nashville. And so I thought it was very important to have that East Nashville perspective, that East Nashville accountability in the process. So I really appreciate that about Scott as a nominee here. And yeah, I think that sums up my pitch for Scott. So really pleased to nominate him.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
I think comments? I think Councilmember Kaplan.
I don't know if I'll recognize Councilmember Kaplan.
With the chair's indulgence, I'll associate myself with everything that Councilmember Parker just said and just add a couple of quick thoughts. This is an incredibly important development for the whole region, but it's a neighborhood issue for the east side. And so I think that the implementation of every aspect of this is going to have neighborhood effects in districts 5 and 6. And so someone on the authority who understands what this is going to do to his or her or their commute or their daily life or what the linkages and events and so forth are going to do to bring that perspective, I think, is pretty indispensable to this authority, and I think it will go a long way toward making that implementation better. The second brief comment I'd add is someone with a background like Mr. Tift has, I think it's always useful to look at when somebody's got such credentials and talents, what they use them to do. And he's used them to support working people. He's used them. He could have done much more lucrative things with his credentials and his talents. And so I think it's worth looking, when the rubber hits the road, he has chosen to spend his career representing and defending working people. And I think that speaks volumes, and I want to make sure to put that in the foreground of this discussion.
I just want to add that I had the privilege of being a paralegal at the law firm where Scott Tiff worked for 5.5 years, and I showed up here for Scott because that's what he always done for any prospective client, and I actually did intakes at the law firm, and Scott was the attorney that I could take a potential claim to or a concern from someone calling for him to vet if they had a case, and if they didn't, he would at least offer up information or guidance that I could give them to go elsewhere. And so I would just encourage everyone to look at his credentials, his background, and know that he is someone that is thrilled just to learn information. And if there is ever someone that you would want to call on to get information from about an issue, it would be Scott.
Thank you. Any questions or comment from the committee? Chair Porterfield.
I'll be very brief. I just wanted to second everything that we've already heard. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Tiff for several years now, and I really, really resonate with what Councilmember Cap said when you look at a person who has a certain level of talent and what they choose to do with those talents, and he has used his talents for good and to serve people. I do think it's going to be very important to make sure that we have an attorney on the board that the council puts on the board so that we can make sure that we have someone that's looking out for the best interests of Nashville, Nashvillians, the people of our city. And I think that Scott is just a perfect blend of someone with the knowledge base, but also just the heart to look out for the people and look out for our workers, and also just bringing that East Nashville perspective, because this is such an important issue to the people that live in that community.
Thank you. Councilmember Zipple.
Thank you, Chair. Labor lawyers are few and far between, especially here in town. And so we really do take notice when you have some, especially good ones. Just knowing from my experience of looking at other boards and commissions, one of the things that we especially look at is making sure that we have representation from neighborhoods. One of these examples is the Fair Board, right? It had been important to have a neighborhood person on the Fair Board to represent the interest of the community. And so I would say that as we move forward with boards and commissions, it's always important to have the neighborhood voice, the neighborhood perspective be a part of the conversation. So I do appreciate Mr. Tiff's great resume and his perspective, and I think that he would make a great addition to this board and commission.
Anything further from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much, Mr. Tift.
Thanks to
All
all
right,
y'all.
next we have Bob Braswell, nominated by Councilmember Jennifer Wood. All right, Mr. Braswell, would you like a parking pass or a bus?
Parking pass.
Thank you.
Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
I am.
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions?
I do not.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about why you want to serve on this authority.
Well, first, I had the opportunity to meet Nate, and I know we're not supposed to go back, but he and I had a great conversation before you all came in, and I'm humbled. I mean, getting to know more of his story from your all's questions was very impressive. And I have this unique perspective. I grew up in Venezuela, and my dad designed the subway system for Caracas. He also was the Washington, D.C. Lead engineer. So I grew up around a lot of mass transit. We lived in Venezuela when it was a great place to grow up. Obviously, that has changed, and it's not the same place. But the perspective that I gained from growing up there and then coming to the United States to go to high school was I learned a lot about people. And I absolutely love Nashville. I married a born, raised Nashvilleian, just a beautiful lady inside and out. And the one thing we always talk about is what makes Nashville great is its diversity. We have people from every walk of life, economic walk of life. And the thing that's impressive is we've always learned how to get along. What concerns us going forward is we lose the Nashville charm. And we know Nashville is a changing story, and it's a fantastic story. And decades from now, we'll always see that Nashville will always be the city because we offer so much. What I want to bring to the board is I've been in construction. I've built mega projects in different countries. I speak 2 languages. I'm multicultural. My thing is people. And you can have the most beautiful buildings and everything that supports the infrastructure. But if we forget about the people, then we've forgotten about everything. And it doesn't matter what we look like, where we came from, what we have, what we don't have. We're all different. I tell my grandkids, we're all a bunch of ducks. We're different, unique, and complex. But we all have the same needs. And so what I'm bringing to this group is I know traffic because I listened to my father for decades talk about what issues are. In fact, when he came here in 1981, he said, if Nashville does not do something now, we are going to have a major issue. And this is a man who has spent his career building mass transit systems. And here we are in 2024, and we're having this discussion. But the other thing is I have a company that is 100% sustainable. So I believe in the green ideology. And if we build out Nashville without that in mind, we're gonna give our next generation of kids and their kids and their kids a place that is not what it looks like now. So there's the green element, the transportation element, but without the people, none of that means anything. And I am hyper-focused on people. I have my wife and Nate were texting numbers and things of who he needed to call to get some things done he wants to get done. Why? Because we care. And I bring that, but I bring with it a vast knowledge of how things have worked around the world, because I've traveled all over the world. I'm a well-known speaker for safety, and not construction safety, but inside of plant safety. And I have fought for workers that are there, that come in, punch a clock, and leave. So much so that I heard a lot of feelings from business owners because I called them on the carpet. I said, you cannot do things in Mexico, Guatemala, Brazil, Argentina, different than you do in the United States, because somebody's going to sue you for it. They deserve the same thing, the same protections that we give people in the United States. They deserve it there. I don't care where somebody comes from or what their background is. I care about them as human beings. And that is what I bring, is a huge focus on people, loving Nashville, raising Nashville even greater than it already is. It's a phenomenal city. But if we don't keep people, our environment, how we build things, and if we don't deal with the transit situation, it doesn't matter what we do on the East Bank. If you can't get the people in a comfortable way without sitting, watching nobody move, wondering why we're not moving, and realize there's a person there that does not know which way to turn, and so we're backed up for 15 minutes, we have to solve that issue. So
Thank you. Councilmember Webb, do you want to speak to your nominee?
Well, I mean, I don't really know much more to say. I think, I just think he's multifaceted. When I met Bob, I've known him for about 3 years now. I was just impressed with him, his knowledge. I mean, how many times do you find one person that has mass transportation, business sense, and green? I mean, I don't know what. That's a little odd combination to me, but I'm willing to deal with it. And, and I just think, you know, that's what we need on the board. We need people that are multifaceted, that can look at the whole picture when we're doing the East Bank down there, and can make decisions not just on one thing, but everything. And that's why I asked him if he wanted to partake, and he was 100% agreeable.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
So do you have a transit perspective in Nashville?
Thank you, I was gonna ask that.
Related to our current plan? I'm not asking for how you're gonna vote or anything, but like, you know, you made a really valid point about kind of the East Bank and the development there, and kind of what does that mean for the future of Nashville and as we build out this neighborhood?
That's a great question. Now, can I have the liberty of prefacing it with, when I-65-24 junction there at Trinity Lane got expanded, I told my wife, I said, it's not right. I've listened to my father for so long. I start to look at things from a different perspective, and the bottleneck is still there because the issue of merging, it's a well-known fact that you try not to have exits and entrances within 3/4 of a mile to a mile of each other. Well, that goes out the window at that junction where Trinity Lane is. And you have people merging and trying to move over 3 or 4 lanes to get off. Until that's fixed, we will continue to have that issue. In terms of moving people in, one of the things that the Europeans have done real well is light rail. And I'm a very big fan of light rail. We will never have a subway here. And anybody that brings that to Nashville saying it'll work, I've spent countless hours talking to my dad about it, and that's what he did. So he said that it'll never work. But light rail will. And if we have satellites out where people can park and kiss, park and ride, park and whatever, and come into the city with light rail, number one, they can be unmanned. And number two, they provide a direct route with the stops wherever they need to be. People get on and people get off. We need a mass transit system, and I would like to see it pass, but I don't think it will, because you have too many people that want the ability to have their car at any moment's notice. If we make it easier to park very close to downtown and ride in, then we solve that problem. And so the long answer to your question is, I'm a huge light rail fan, and because I think it's highly efficient. It can be very green if it's all electric, and it just solves a lot of issues.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thanks for the question.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry? All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Hospital Authority Board reappointment of Frank Stevenson for a term expiring on July 11th, 2029.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a mix-up and Mr. Stevenson didn't get the notification, so could you all defer that, would y'all be willing to defer that one meeting? Oh, I didn't know you were gonna speak to it, my apologies.
That's okay. Yeah, he's covered back from members.
Okay, yeah, I'll make the motion for a 1 meeting deferral. Do we have a second? All right, heard and properly seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting for a 1 meeting deferral.
Hey, I have a question.
Yes.
I know we're behind. I know we need, I don't want to take too long with this, but we just interviewed people for the East Bank Development Authority, and I just want to be reminded a little bit of, since it is a new authority, I want to be reminded a little bit of, like, we had the opportunity to nominate. We had five nominees, and we interviewed 4 of them today. and I'm just trying to remember what, like, where are we in terms of other nominations? Like, I know that we have council members on it. What, is that correct? Do we know, like, what other nominations are?
What's the board look like?
For the East Bank Authority.
Yes, I'm sorry.
The mayor has not made any appointments. Is that what you're asking?
Has
We
not?
have 4. No, we have.
Will.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that's what I
And then
mainly what I wanted.
the state of,
The state has 2.
the state has as
Right,
well.
okay. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you. Sorry to.
Oh, no, it's more than all right. Next, we have the National Music, Film, and Entertainment Commission appointment of Erica Knowles for a term expiring on October 17th, 2028. Ms. Knowles, if you'll step forward.
Actually, Erica Wolin-Nichols.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you like
It'll be a lot easier if there was no
Would you like a bus pass or a parking ballot?
Please,
Okay.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. And are you currently a Davidson County resident?
I am.
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions?
I serve on the Academy of Country Music Association Board, the ACLU of Tennessee Board.
Awesome, welcome. So tell us a little bit about why you want to serve on this commission.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity. I was a Belmont grad in philosophy, but the whole time I was at Belmont, I worked as a waitress and various other things at the Bluebird Cafe, and continued to work there through other jobs. And I know you've seen my resume, but I've always been attached to the Bluebird. And when Amy Curlin retired 16 years ago, I took over as general manager and chief operating officer. So my role is, I guess, for this particular commission is 2 points of focus. One is live music in Nashville and venues, and making sure that what makes Nashville, Nashville, as far as Music City, stays strong, stays focused. We're experiencing quite a bit of development. If any of you have driven down Hillsborough Road, you may not see the Bluebird because of a 22-story high-rise next to us. And I am very concerned about protecting music in this town. The second part of my focus has always been songwriters. For the people who've been in Nashville a long time, I was program director for the Summer Lights Festival, so presenting music in downtown. And I gradually, partially because of my experience at the Bluebird, but further on, went on to take on Tin Pan South and just become more and more involved with songwriters here in town. And they are a valuable resource. It is a resource that other cities, other countries, people do not have. And we do. And we're very fortunate to have those creators here in our town. And for my hopeful appointment on this committee would be an advocate for those songwriters, from the very baby ones who play on our open mic at Bluebird to the established writers who really bring attention to this city with the music that they're the best songwriters in the world we have here. And so it has been my mission and my goal to stay focused on them and to make sure that Nashville has their touch with that foundation of the music industry.
Thank you. Any questions from the community?
It's not a question. We've never met, but I know you through, back in the day, we'll talk later.
Yeah.
But additionally, my work in the industry, so we cross paths, and everything you have done, I have been enamored with. And so thank you for giving your talents to us.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It is an honor I served on the Convention Center Commission in about 2008, and it is an honor to serve this city. I'm from Boston originally, but I'm grateful to be in a city that has the kind of accessibility that puts me in this chair talking to all of you and having you understand, sort of where I'm coming from in terms of my heart and soul.
Anything further from the committee?
Move approval.
I can bring to the Bluebird in a minute. Are you still shushing people? Is that the standard? Just want to be prepared for when I go back.
Well, as I tell people on an introduction, do not let shush scare you. Because clapping, singing, cheering, and enlivening yourself with the music is never frowned upon. It's just making it a point for people to really listen, because the songwriters are up there making something out of nothing, and they are bearing their souls, and we want to make a place where people can hear that, respond to it, and share cathartically in that.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Those, any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Next, we have the Stormwater Management Commission appointment of Nathan Oliver for a term expiring on October 31st, 2028. Mr. Oliver, thank you for being here. Would you like a bus pass or a parking violation? Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
I am.
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions other than what you're being appointed to?
I currently serve on this commission. I'm finishing. I was back here in April and I finished out someone's term, so now it's the appointment for a full term. Yep.
And so tell us a little bit more about why you want to continue serving on this commission.
Yeah, so I've had the unique opportunity to be a part of this for the past few months and to really see how it works in real time. I knew how it worked just from my professional experience. So I'm a landscape architect, and through that we work in with natural systems, natural built systems every single day in our work, and being able to bring that perspective to the commission. The person who I took the place of actually advocated to bring this position to the commission, the first landscape architect to be appointed to it. We work in very similar avenues as engineers, who are a lot of the other commissioners that are on it, who are probably who you think of most often when you think of stormwater issues. But we work very close and in tandem together, but we bring very different things to the table in the way we think about systems and the way we think about approaches. So it's been really great to see how that has worked and really brought different perspectives to the commission. The cases that we see are not easy, and they're relatively complex, and I think it speaks to where we are as a city and the growth that we are experiencing and seeing. Development's not always easy, and it's not always in the easiest locations, and so people come before some really complex cases, and the knowledge and breadth of the committee and as a landscape architect, being able to be a part of that, I think really brings a unique perspective to it, and I've really appreciated and valued my few months there, and look forward to the opportunity to continue that work.
So perfect. What would be something that you would be looking to accomplish or want your impact to be over the course of this next term?
Yeah, I think continuing to bring that perspective to the board or to the commission and really to the community. A lot of times it ends up being a large component of education, educating the people that are coming before us on the regulations and how to think about why they're even coming before us, and how that impact is not just for their particular side, but really the community, and how we are really looking at it from a community-based approach, a systems-based approach, to ensure that what we are doing today really doesn't have a negative impact, and hopefully a positive impact to looking to the future, and how we are hopefully really working to improve the place in which we live, and not just trying to find a way to work, really trying to find a way to work with it in what we're doing, and to make sure that all the natural resources that we have here in Nashville, which are abundant, and we live in such a unique city, that we continue to have this in the future.
Awesome. Councilmember Dropper.
Yeah, thank you. With the extensive growth in infill especially, and sort of a compounded impervious surface, do you see any needs for regulations for the infill as we're starting to see some excessive water come through? Any thoughts on that?
I think we as a city have a really robust set of stormwater regulations. I think some of the data and studies that we have seen have proven that those work work well. I think as we continue to grow and as we continue to learn how those are implemented and how they work, I think there's always opportunities to look at ways in which we can tailor them to be more effective. So I think in a lot of ways they have done great work. I think there's always opportunities for us to continue to look at them and to study and evaluate and to make sure that they're still doing what they were intended to do. So to answer your question, I think we should regularly look back and make sure that what regulations are in place are still achieving what they were intended to originally, or whether they need to be kind of tweaked and adapted. I know that there's certain things that we have looked at just in practice on how those apply, and if there are certain ways in which thresholds or the ways in which they're applied can be looked at to make sure that, you know, when we're developing infill sites that we are managing the stormwater that is created from them and not creating any adverse impacts for neighbors.
Follow. Do you see trees as a potential improving runoff?
You're talking to a landscape architect.
Just trying to get them, ensure that you have that impression.
Yeah, absolutely. Trees offer so many benefits to what we do, or to what we are as a city, and the more ways that we can look at the value of our current tree canopy and kind of the benefits that they provide, stormwater being one of them, and not necessarily just an opportunity or just a way of saying how can we mitigate removing this one and replacing something else. I think one opportunity is to look at how we incentivize preservation of them and incentivize the credit for them in a way that makes it meaningful for people developing or building sites. That
good answer.
puts
I miss Alan.
Puts some opportunity there. Yeah.
Councilmember Weir.
I'm in Bellevue. We have a RESA, and I know that's been before y'all. I don't want to ask you, you know, which way you land on that. I want to know your approach to making those kind of decisions.
Yeah, so I look at the regulations. I look at how those regulations apply to each specific site. We look at the unique aspects of a site. Every site is different. Every piece of property in Davidson County has unique attributes of it. And like I said earlier, we live in a unique city that has a lot of natural resources. So I look at the regulations. I look at the particular site. I look at what are the requests before us that are asking for a variance from those regulations and why, what the impacts of those are to potential the community on the macro and micro scale, and trying to evaluate whether that variance is should be allowed based on the reasons before us and the way in which it would affect the regulations and others.
Thank you.
Anything further from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, we've got 3 more things to move through. So on our on this portion of the agenda, so boards and commission confirmations. Candidates in this category will be subject to a recommendation vote by the Rules, Confirmations, and Public Election Committees and confirmed by the council. I'm going to put all of these individuals on consent. Is there anybody that anybody wishes to remove from consent? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to read these into the record. So item 1 is the Contract and Compliance Board appointment of Fabian Bedney for a term expiring on July 27, 2026. The Contract and Compliance Board appointment of Michael Diva for a term expiring on August 28, 2026. Contract and Compliance Board appointment of Matt Neal for a term expiring on September 5th, 2026. Contract and Compliance Board appointment of Alfredo Pena III for a term expiring on September 3rd, 2026. Convention Center Authority reappointment of Nora Dykstra for a term expiring on September 30th, 2028. Convention Center Authority reappointment of Seema Prasad for a term expiring on September 30th, 2028. Finance Director appointment of Janine Reed as the Metropolitan Director of Finance. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. So going back to those items that were rolled to the hill, first is RS 2024-804. Councilmember Toombs, a resolution celebrating the 100th anniversary of American Baptist College. There is a late filed substitute. Councilmember Toombs, you are recognized to describe the nature of the substitute.
So the substitute adds some additional language to the resolution that the college wanted to be included. There was some miscommunication with the council office, and so it ended up being late filed instead of timely filed. And they're celebrating their 100th anniversary of the college this month. So this is the last meeting to do the resolution. I mean, it's their actual anniversary.
We've heard the late filed nature. Any discussion? Right, so gonna move to suspend the rules to allow for the late filed substitute. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting to suspend the rules. Next, we also have a late filed substitute by Councilmember Allen on RS 2024-779.
Chair, I'm sorry, on 804 with Councilmember Toombs, you also need to vote on the substance of the resolution and not just the late file nature.
So we've, going back, we've heard the reason for the late file, and the, what the nature of the resolution is. Is there any discussion on the resolution?
With approval of the resolution.
Right.
As substitute.
Second.
Right, moved properly seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Okay, so lastly, RS 2024-779 by Councilmember Allen. We heard the explanation of what, of the substitute earlier. Councilmember Allen, do you want to, were you able to find somebody to?
Yes, so
answer
I'll just say again, it's essentially a housekeeping amendment, substitute that just makes the caption match the grant description. I have checks with Tom Sharp, and he said it would not mess him up to wait 2 weeks if he wanted to do it in the fashion. So I'd love to get it done this week, but it's not critical.
So hearing that it's not necessary, discussion from the committee.
I'll just say that in public health and safety, Tom had no issues, and it's one of those things like everybody's already gone through the activity of preparing it. Why not just move it forward? Because I don't feel like it's any issue, that's a negative against Councilmember Allen or anything like that. But so I would support moving it forward and suspending the rules and all that stuff.
I agree.
Same.
I agree with the sentiment. For me, it's one of those situations where we, again, as former Chair Skolka stated, wanting to sort of be consistent. If it's something that we can wait on, then I generally would support waiting to consider it once it's timely filed. However,
Are you going to raise your hand, Chair? Are you going to raise your hand in the meeting?
I'll be the only one, but but just for the record, wanted to state that. But we'll go ahead and move forward.
Move approval for the late filed.
Second.
I second.
All right. So the question is to approve the rule suspension for the late file nature of it. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm not voting. So we've got 6 in favor, 1 against, 0 not voting. All right, and that is it for the agenda. Do we have a motion? All right, without objection, we stand adjourned.